Randolph with the Orangevale History Project, and I am here at the Chamber office, the Orangevale Chamber of Commerce office, and I'm here to interview, along with my videographer, Ken Benedict, Greg Greenhalgh, a longtime resident of Orangevale, and his family kind of is Orangevale. So, Greg, I understand that your family arrived here in 1905?
They actually, 1903 is what my family had told us, is that they came in the year that my grandfather was born.
I see. So your grandfather is Lloyd.
Yes.
And he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the seventh child.
Yes.
And so was he born here?
No, he was born in Minnesota and then brought here.
Okay. And so then Evelyn and Ethel were born here?
Yes.
Okay. And your grandfather bought the property at Hazel and Central?
My great-grandfather.
Uh-huh. And his name?
Theodore.
Theodore. All right. So Theodore came here in 1903 and bought 30?
30-some acres, and then bought ranches and farmland throughout the area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your grandfather, Lloyd, what are your memories of him?
My grandfather was the essence of a gentleman. I mean, not the gentleman of high society, but he was a very gentle person. And I remember as a kid going out to his ranch, feeding cows, a couple of times dehorning cows and branding them. And that was where American River Canyon was one of his ranches, and where Fitness 19 and Vic's Market used to be. That was the sorting pens, and we would go there once a year and brand and dehorn cows. And I just remember, as a small child, I can still remember how bad it smelled. The branding cows the old-fashioned way, and it was. I just remember. I think I did it twice in my lifetime. And then,
How old were you then?
I was probably 5 and 7.
So you were born, where were you born?
I was born in Sacramento.
Okay, at a hospital.
At Mercy General.
At Mercy General. Okay, so your dad,
Jack.
What did Jack do?
Well, he considered himself a jack of all trades, but he, when I was young, he was in landscaping, and he went from landscaping to hauling hay, and had a fairly successful hay business behind my grandfather's house off of Pecan. And after that, he and his cousin Eddie Greenhalgh, Howard's son, started a construction company. He continued with that until we bought a rock quarry in Marysville, and I continue to own part of that rock quarry.
So, have you always lived in the house you're living in now?
No. At first, we lived off of Beach and Elm, and in 7th grade, we moved to Eldora Hills off of Seven Falls Road, and my Aunt Lily lived in that house, and when she passed on, my family inherited that house, and I wound up living there, and I've lived there since 1988.
So quite a while.
Yes.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school, in elementary school, Oakview, and kind of got in trouble there and had to go to Hazel Avenue Baptist Academy in Fair Oaks. And after that, we moved to Elder Hills, went to Rescue and Ponderosa High School.
So, okay. Okay, so we could be here for days talking about your family. You have quite a legacy. You have Sadie Cable,
Yeah.
who is your great aunt.
Great aunt.
And what do you know about her?
My impressions of Aunt Sadie is she was the oldest, and she was always really old, but she drove everywhere, and I admired her for her independence. And then I remember as probably 17, 18 years old, she was up at our house in Elder Hills, and she started talking baseball, and an amazingly smart woman. I mean, she could rattle off baseball stats and team stats and player stats from the 1920s, 30s through modern stuff, and just boom, 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 just amazing woman.
Now, she married a Cable.
Yes, and I don't remember him.
You don't remember him?
No.
Okay, what about your great aunt Lily?
Aunt Lily, well, Aunt Lily never had children or grandchildren, and pretty much I was her grandchild. And that's how I ended up with her house.
What was Lily's last name?
Trevey.
We don't know that.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, Lily, her last name was Trevey, Lily Trevey.
Yes.
Yes.
And she was an outstanding musician. I think I disappointed her when I chose sports over music. Matter of fact, I know I did. But I remember going over to her house probably 2 or 3 times a week growing up here in Orangevale. Beach and Elm was maybe a mile from here and from Capri Market across the street. And my mom would send me walking, go get this, and I'd always go back through and visit Aunt Lily on the way home. She loved me like a grandchild, and it was awesome. I never knew her husband. He died before I was born. But when I asked about him for another project, none of my surviving aunts really had any memories of him. Other than he was kind of a stodgy old guy but no one really had any knowledge of him.
So your next person was your great uncle Henry, also known as Perry.
Perry?
Does he have a last name?
Greenhalgh.
Greenhalgh.
Okay.
Perry Greenhalgh.
I knew they lived close to Maine. And I knew some of the family around him. I really didn't know him very much. I remember my dad took me over to his house when he was really sick as a real small kid, and that's what I remember of him.
So next we have Martha Bost. Am I saying it correctly?
Aunt Martha Bost.
Bost.
She lived with Aunt Lily, so as my Aunt Lily was my secondary grandmother. She was very nice, very gracious, loved me, loved our family, and did a lot of stuff with my family, my brother and my mom and dad. And we never really hung out with her sons or her grandson. We knew who they were. My dad and Burton, her son, knew each other and hung out with each other earlier in their year. But as the family spread out, we never really hung out with them that much.
Then next is Helen Spring.
Aunt Helen, I met her a few times. I don't really have any recollection of any impression of her.
All right. Then we have your grandfather, Lloyd Greenhalgh,
Awesome guy. I
and
love
his wife.
him. And I miss her too. Like I said, my grandfather was a gentleman and loved fishing, loved hunting, loved his grandsons, worked till the day he died. As a matter of fact, I was working in my dad's shop, which is behind their house, and I had to go to my dad's office, which was in Rancho Cordova, and my my grandfather was like, "Come sit for a spell. Let's talk." I can't, Grandpa. I've got to go. I got to meet Dad at the office. I got to get back to work. And he's like, "Well, have a great day," and told him the same. And when I got to the office, my dad grabbed me and told me that he just had a heart attack. And so we got here in time to watch him take him away. And probably one of my regrets is that I didn't sit a spell with him.
Your grandmother, her name?
Gertrude?
Gertrude. Now, Gertrude was the Greenhalgh. She was
Yes.
the one who was involved with the Orangevale Women's Club.
Yes. She was German, immigrant from Germany. My father told me that when he was growing up, they knew her in Orangevale as the German lady. She was a chef, an outstanding cook, treated everybody the same, whether they're immigrant workers that were working in their orchards, didn't matter. She treated them the same as her family, that when we came out of the fields from picking prunes or whatever it was, everybody was treated the same way with her. And I always took that as something I really admired with her. And just where my grandfather would never go to Little League games or anything like that. He just was working. My grandmother made as many as she could, whether it's, choirs or, school stuff or Little League games, or when we were racing motorcycles, she'd come out to that. She loved her grandchildren. And I really miss her a lot.
Do you remember any of her activities with the Women's Club?
I knew how important it was to her. She was a parliamentarian, and the Women's Club was a very important part of her life. And as a preteen and kid, I really didn't have that much to do with the Women's Club, but other than just, it took precedence over a lot of other things in her life.
We have Evelyn and Ethel, and I know one of them was married to Earl McNeely.
That would be my Aunt Ethel.
Ethel. Okay, so let's talk about Evelyn.
Last names?
McNeely.
Tell the microphone.
Oh, well, we're going to talk about Evelyn first. What was Evelyn's last name, do you know? I didn't get that.
Cohen or Goen.
Okay.
She was my impressions of her, she was very elegant. She lived in Carmichael, and I just remember her as she loved the whole family. She was in, she was at family gatherings and different stuff like that, and she was the thing that just reminds is she was elegant. She
In what way?
she dressed really elegantly. She carried herself in a manner that she didn't lord over anybody, but she was. That's what I remember of her, and I have other memories. Well, I'll keep those to myself.
Okay. Then lastly, the 9th child was Ethel, and her last name was McNeely.
Yes. Aunt Ethel was another aunt that when I was riding my bicycle throughout Orangevale, it was almost expected that I'd cross over Greenback on Pecan and go visit Aunt Ethel. I'd go visit my grandmother, Aunt Lily, and Aunt Ethel, and there was always some sort of treat to go along with it. And she was the youngest, I believe, and she also like Aunt Evelyn, really carried herself very well, and married my uncle Earl, which was a professional baseball player. Hit the winning run-in the 1924 World Series. The Washington Senators beat the Boston Red Sox, and I always thought that was a family lore that I paid no attention to until I saw the Ken Burns special and they showed the game, and I'm just like, wow, that's my uncle. And the memory I have of my great uncle Earl was an Easter picnic that the family had out in the Barton Ranch, which equates out to part of American River Canyon. And we had a baseball game, and I was probably 6 years old, and I got a hit off of him, and it was the best thing in my life until my dad threw me out at first. So, but my dad did not give me any, even as a small kid. There was no slack for my father.
So Ethel and Earl, is their house still standing?
Their original house isn't. Her house, I would say, that was built in the late 50s, early 60s, along with the house I live in now, is still off of Pecan, just north of Pecan Park.
Mm-hmm. Well, that takes us through your very, very large slate of ancestors there, pioneer
Yes.
family in Orangevale. How about your life? Tell us about your early recollections. You've already spoken about riding your bicycle to the Capri, and I'm assuming you played baseball at some point?
Well, with my family, baseball was a very important thing, with Uncle Earl being a professional, and then also my cousin Ted played for the Oakland Oaks, and also I believe with the Solons, Sacramento Solons, back in the day. As a matter of fact, when I was in the Army, two-star general came up to me and asked me if I knew who my dad was, knew who Jack was. I'm like, yeah, he's my father. He's like, well, I grew up with him. And wow, great. As a brand new officer, it was pretty cool to have a two-star general in my corner. But he had baseball cards of Ted as an Oakland Oak. And I have a photocopy of it somewhere. And thought that was pretty cool.
It is.
And then my cousin Danny also played professional ball. And so it was probably one of the most disappointing things about, for my family about me, because I played a couple years at Little League and just did not like baseball as much as they did. And so I quit and did football and started racing motorcycles and that kind of stuff, and had my other interests that I wound up doing.
So tell us about more of your early memories of Orangevale.
I grew up off of Beach and Elm, and I remember walking, the long block to Oakview Elementary School. I remember there being a lot more open areas in Orangevale than there are now, and playing out in open fields and digging forts and having tree forts and all the stuff that little kids did back then before stuck on game consoles and phones. But Orangevale is a wonderful place to live in. I remember being part of the Powwow Day Parade a few times. Our church, Orangevale Free Methodist Church off of Oak Avenue and Beach, had a big float, and we all got to ride on the float. And I remember even earlier than that, my preschool had a float in it, and it was the old woman that lived in a shoe, and all the preschool kids got to ride on the flatbed trailer and I remember just it ending right here down by Beach and Greenback, and I just remember powwow days being a real fun time for us, and playing games and riding bicycles.
Do you have any special toys?
Mostly as a young kid, I was mainly into Tonka toys and anything construction, because my dad had bulldozers and other stuff. And I was really into playing Army, which I wound up doing as an adult. I think I was more organized as a kid than I was as an adult with it.
I forgot to ask you what year you were born.
I was born in May of 1963.
So you graduated from Pioneer High School?
Ponderosa.
Ponderosa. And what happened after high school?
Went to college.
Where'd you go?
I went to Sierra College for a few years. Wound up taking not online courses, but correspondence courses, and to where I could get my commission in the Army. So, and wound up going places with the Army, and came back here in '89 and started working for my father again in construction, and bounced around in the construction industry for a while, and then went back to work for my dad when he started operating a quarry in Marysville. And once again, I still own part of that business.
Do you have children?
I have 2 children, Jared and Grant. Jared was named after my little brother who died as a baby. So named after his uncle. And Grant was just, and they go to Casseroles and Pasteur.
Mm-hmm.
Grant. And
Where'd they go to elementary?
Green Oaks.
Green Oaks. So it
Play
sounds,
football?
What's that?
Does the kid play football?
I remember trying to get them into soccer, football, whatever. They never liked team sports. My oldest is a 3rd-degree black belt. Liked Taekwondo a lot, and until I got bored of it. And then my youngest got into horses and 4-H, and is doing really well with that, and wound up buying his own horse earlier this year. And not bad for a 12-year-old kid that earned up enough money of his own to buy his own horse.
how did he earn the money?
He got a job that paid enough to where he bought a cow, and then sold the cow, and made a couple $1,000s off of it, and that was enough to buy his horse, and he was super happy with that. And
Was the
and I-
kid stabled around here?
what's that? Right now it's stabled in Grass Valley, and we plan on moving to Idaho later this year, and we got a house with 6 acres and a barn and cross-fenced, and perfect for his horse. Well, his horses. He bought another horse as well, so he has a mini horse, what I call pony, and his regular horse.
It sounds lovely. Sounds like a
Yeah.
lovely boy.
He's got a great head on his shoulders. Very kind person. My oldest one, he's a teenager.
Any other memories of your family or your life here in Orangevale you'd like to share?
I just remember my best friend was named Todd Brassel. He lived off of Walnut Avenue. And even as maybe 1st or 2nd grade, being able to ride my bicycle a mile to go visit my best friend off of Walnut Avenue, and him coming over to my house, or walking half mile to school, was nothing. It was expected. Or walking or riding my bike a mile to go to Capri Market, or pick up something for my mom, or just riding my bicycle over to my grandmother's house, and then over and crossing, as a really young kid, crossing Greenback on my bicycle. What I was like, look both ways and go across Greenback. I don't see that independence anymore. I think that's something that kids miss today.
Now, is Todd still in Orangevale?
He lives out of Auburn. And,
In Auburn?
Yes.
Any other friends that you remember from that time?
Guy up Beach Avenue, a guy named Brian Scott. great guy. We kind of lost track of each other after we moved to Eldred Hills. Todd, we still keeping track of each other. I met him in preschool, and he's my oldest friend. Trying to think.
What do you and your friends do on the weekends?
Dirt clod wars, digging trenches in property across the street from us, and making forts. Did a lot of we catch bluegill behind Louis Pasteur and the little creeks that run in what now is Orangevale Park. Back then it was kind of like a place where dirt bikes could ride, and guys with BMX bikes could ride as well, and we did that. As we would do whatever our families wanted us to do other than that. But,
What are some of the stores you remember around the area?
Well, I remember Capri a lot. The Woos were family friends. I remember the pharmacy that was down from Capri because my friend Paul Schrader, his dad owned that. Del Schrader, which is one of my dad's best friends growing up. I remember on this side there was a little strip mall that had a toy store and like a hobby shop, toy store type thing. And Paul Schrader's dad, or Dale Schrader, had a pharmacy on that side. And then when Capri built the strip mall that was added to Capri, he moved over to there. And remember the laundromat, and of course, Van's Market and Foster Freeze, and
I was just going to ask you about that.
now that was about the limit of where my mother would let me ride my bicycle to. But since my friend Todd lived right down the street from there, we sneak over there quite a bit. And remember a kitty corner from here, there was I believe it was a Round Table Pizza or a pizza place, and I remember myself and friends, probably Brian Scott, would go there and listen to the jukebox and play video games. Yeah, just didn't have the consoles they have now. So that was all plunk in your quarters and go.
Do you remember a hamburger place called Angaber?
I remember that. I can't remember. I can't remember where it was at, but I remember the.
Over there, right? Where Orangevale Liquor is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The Breedloves used to own that whole area.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Hangaber. And remember my mom getting mad that my dad would hang out at the Black Stallion. And then I remember listening to a radio show talking about the court case of the Pink Pussycat. That was a pretty interesting story behind that. I'll forego that story.
We've had it.
We've had some pretty good stories.
Interesting stories about that place.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a court case, though.
Yeah. I'll tell you off camera.
Yes, we've had some of our interviewees have spoken about the Pink Pussycat, definitely.
I was too young for that, but I knew it was there. It's like, what is that, Dad? You don't need to know. Move along, nothing to see here. So.
Anything else? Any questions?
When did you start driving?
see, I was 16 years old, so a long time ago. So probably 79, 80.
What were the roads like back then?
A lot less lanes, a lot less congested. But I was in Elder Hills by that time, but I still come down here a lot. I remember the day I got my driver's license. My grandfather and I went to work for my dad, and I think I drove like 150 miles on my first day I had my license. So,
Wow.
going back and forth from Sacramento, back to different places, and running, parts and different stuff for his construction company. And but I believe I tired my grandfather out that day.
From riding along or worry?
Both. That's the original Greenhalgh home. It was built in 1895
And location?
on Central and Hazel, northeast corner. And that is the house that replaced the original house. That was my Aunt Lily's house that she built in 1961. And she built it around the original fireplace. And so I have a fireplace that's well over 100 years old in my house. The rock is just incredible on it. That's my great-grandfather and great-grandmother. I don't know the other two ladies. Most of my aunts I never knew without gray hair, so any of the pictures of them younger, I'm baffled with. I believe that was my great-grandmother, Eva, driving, looks like a Model T.
And where was this?
I would say somewhere around Orangevale, as they never left. My grandfather and his family after a hunt, and those are most of his brothers and a lot of my dad's cousins, and my father. My grandfather had a cabin up out of Strawberry, and that's him and my father, and I believe that was Ted, who was my grandfather's fishing buddy.
And a beautiful stringer of fish.
And a beautiful stringer of trout, looks like.
Okay.
This was my dad's pride and joy in the late 60s, when he had his hay hauling business. He bought a brand new Peterbilt, and well, it wasn't really late 60s, because I remember going up into Nevada, being 3 and 4 years old, and sleeping in the sleeper all the way up there. That's my grandfather, with his tractors and some of my dad's tractors, and that's how I learned how to drive, was on a little tractor like that.
It's like a Ford 8N.
Yep. I don't particularly remember that tractor. I remember my dad. I still have my dad's Massey Ferguson, like a 1961 model.
Okay.
That's my father and grandfather. When Caterpillar brought in their first D10 in Northern California, and gave my dad the opportunity to test it out and see if he wanted to buy it. And we didn't. It was a little bit expensive back then, but we wound up buying like 2 or 3 after that. That's my grandmother. She was a parliamentarian. It looks like she was at a meeting somewhere in Los Angeles.
All the way on the left.
All the way on the left. With last and probably least, there's me on the same D10 Caterpillar. I was probably 15, 16 years old at the time.
Did you drive that thing?
Yes, I did.
Ooh.
I drove a D9,
Yeah.
that big machine.
Yeah, I still have a D9 up at my pit. But D10s were just incredible. I mean, they would do like twice the work of a D9. I think that's the picture from
Now
that.
you have to re-describe it.
Okay. I believe this is a picture of my grandmother in Hawaii doing some parliamentarian stuff that she did. Just judging from the Asian and Polynesian attire of everybody.
Yes. That looks like a kimono almost.
Yeah. And but I remember going with my dad and mom to go pick her up in San Francisco. That was in San Francisco airport. We were the ones, whenever she did any kind of traveling, we were the ones that picked her up. Born and raised partially in Orangevale, and love my life here. Since 1987, lived back in my old family house. Love living there. It's historic. I believe that we are the oldest continually living in Orangevale family, and I'm the one. My sons are proud to be from Orangevale, and so am I. And I wish they had the life I had when I was young.
That was 2 lanes.
I have a picture, and I tried to find it, but I couldn't, of Hazel, a two-lane Hazel,
Dirt road?
and Central was dirt. And I think Hazel was dirt with oil on it.
Wow.
Just a macadam road.
We have not seen a picture
That's
of
from,
Hazel. We keep seeing
This one.
this
Well,
one. but we
my
haven't
grandmother
seen
had,
Hazel.
she's like, Greenback is a very special road, because it's the first road in the county to be paid for by greenbacks, by not being paid for with gold. I'll do my
Especially
best.
the hazel, because we don't
Yeah.
have any. We have.
Well,
we have the
I'll try and
east-west.
find the picture of the old house on Hazel, and I find it amazing that my big magnolia tree was still a big magnolia tree, and my 3 palm trees that are my pain in the hind end are still big palm trees back then. So it's like, wow, not much has changed. And then, and some of the stuff that I've read about the heart of Orangevale. So, you have downtown Orangevale right there. I'm the heart of Orangevale, is where I live. So I know that there's some articles about my grandfather and great-grandfather being involved with getting water into Orangevale, irrigation water into Orangevale, and why they were part of the Orangevale Water Company. And
I see on one of these that Lily was on the board of the water company
Yeah,
at one
yeah.
point.
I think they all were at one point or another. I know that my grandfather was very involved with getting water past. I think what I read was it came up to Maine, and he was pretty involved with trying to get it down past
Is this
into.
the water trough that came from American River Canyon North?
Yes.
Or the one that came from Folsom Dam?
I think he was involved with both of them, because he needed water for his orchards off of Pecan. but I know that he was involved with the stuff that came off the dam because part of Baldwin Dam and the water was on part of his ranch, and you know, from what I was told is, I mean, they had ranches all over the place, and pretty much at one point, you know, my great grandfather owned probably the majority of land from here to Roseville, different ranches, different orchards and farms, and I know that my dad had a story that him and his cousin Eddie would both be on a tractor plowing what now is Woodburn's ranch, and they would make 2 trips around the entire ranch a day.
What was the predominant
That
in the orchards?
well,
Or did it vary?
when the orchards that I remember, what was a prune orchard, and it had a few trees throughout the orchard, a couple pear trees, a couple apple trees, but I know that they had a lot of different fruits. I have a little house that's next to mine that was the packing shed that they converted into a house, a rental place. And but there was also the packing shed off of Pecan across from Uncle Earl's house, and that was a bigger shed. And my dad had told me that working conditions in those sheds was just stifling hot, and you know, because you know, you pick most of the fruit in the summer and trying to sort them out and put them in boxes and to ship them.
Did you take the boxes of fruit up to Loomis?
That was you know, my dad said that he had done that. I know that in my lifetime, we had my grandfather's prune orchard, and we would take the prunes up to Sunsweet out of Marysville, and started out picking prunes as a kid. Then as a teenager, preteen and teenager, I was on a forklift home, you know, and then once I got my license, I was on a flatbed truck hauling prunes up to Marysville.
That water canal from Folsom Dam, above Folsom Dam,
Yeah.
is still there. It's still intact, most of the way. But
Well,
you
I know
got
it's still,
pieces made from
yeah, yeah. I know that, I know that as a kid, we would go and there was I don't know what you would call it. It was like
There was a metal trough over here
Yeah.
above American River North that we used
Yeah.
to go play in when I was a kid.
but this, I remember, I remember some kind of like screening. They'd pull these metal screens out and drop other metal screens in to get
The junk out.
the junk out of the water before it. And that's one thing I'll miss when I leave, is Orangevale has the best water in the world.
Who worked in the packing sheds?
My family, I mean, a professional baseball player named Earl McNeely. I have a stamp. It's a metal piece of metal that they heat up and they roll it on in the boxes, and with Greenhalgh McNeely Fruit Company.
You still have one of those metal stamps?
Yeah, I do.
Because they have a whole room full of them up in Loomis.
Well,
Still there.
I'm not giving it away.
The brass ones?
Yeah. I got them. Yeah, I can give pictures of it. And I actually have have the end of a box with
The label?
with the label
Oh, man. that's
burned
neat.
into it.
Burned into it?
Yeah.
Oh, we have to, could we get a picture of that?
Sure.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
do-
neat.
Hopefully it's not packed up yet, but I think that's still on my
Used to ride our bikes up to that metal culvert up there, above Santa Juanita and stuff.
yeah,
down there,
yeah.
And because the water was so clean and clear.
Yeah, it was. As a kid, I remember playing in different ditches and stuff like that in the ranch, because that was it was just above, or actually just below Baldwin Dam.
Did you ever play in that big cave in that same area above?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
There was a big cave there.
I remember playing in the caves by Negro Bar. There's a few of those, and getting my butt whooped by my mom when she found out that I'd done it. Because we went back as far as we could. It wasn't just the 5 feet. And, my brother dared me. Those double dog dares, terrible. Yeah,
They'll get you every time.
they'll get me. So we went as far as we could, and boy, my mother was mad at me over that one.
How'd you find out?
My brother.
Oh. He double dog dared you and then he told your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my brother.
I can't think of anything more to ask.
But
You covered it real well.
Yes.
thanks for doing this. When Chris contacted me about my aunt, I thought, man, I know everything there is to know about her. And I'm just like, when I started talking to her, I was like, man, I know nothing about my family. And, when I talked to my Aunt Jill and Aunt Marlene, figuring that they grew up with them, that they knew less than I did. They're, I remember Uncle Arch being kind of a stodgy old guy, and it's like, okay, well, that must be true because both you and Aunt Jill had the same impression of him. But my dad, I asked him, what do you know about your grandpa? Nothing. My dad passed 7 years ago, but but I remember talking to him about it. It's like, the old house, I knew a little bit about it, but I really don't know that much. But it was, when my grandmother was the matriarch of the family, we were pretty tight, and when she passed, we all kind of splintered and went our separate ways. But like Eddie, so that would be Uncle Howard's son. He was always really jovial, fun guy, but his son and I, we worked together and really enjoyed hanging out with Carl.
One last question.
Yeah.
Looking back on all this, what would you have done differently?
For me personally,
Yeah.
I think I would have tried to care more about our family history. I mean, I knew the big stuff. I knew that Uncle Earl hit the winning run in, but I honestly thought it was a old wives' tale. But my dad had a baseball with all the senators on one side and all the New York Yankees, including Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, on the other side. I still have that, but my cousin took it outside and played with it and just destroyed all the autographs. But I know there's another pristine one down in Newport Beach, because that was Uncle Earl's daughter. Still has that one. But, you know, I know I lost Uncle Earl's four-fingered glove, and playing Little League, and I hated that thing because everybody else had regular baseball gloves, and I had this old four-finger glove that I didn't know anything about it. But then when my dad explained to me this was your Uncle Earl's, I'm just like,
Yeah.
When I lost that, but that was probably towards the end of my baseball career.